Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about how to produce music, basically for anyone who's starting out, beginners, whatnot. I'm basically just going to begin by this as if you've never used a DAW or digital audio workshop before, ever in your life. So how I'm going to start off with this is basically just to give you a rundown of what I believe you should start your mentality by going into the creative process. Part of making music, I feel like a lot of people look over is basically how your mind is set up going into it, and even deeper than that is your soul or your basic desire to become a musician or just to create music in general. If you ever go on YouTube and look up tutorials on how to produce music, you're going to find a lot of very step-by-step, rigid procedures that I feel throw people off as to what producing music is really all about. One example I feel that's overused a lot in music is the concept of compressing simply. If you don't know what compressing is, I can probably do a video about this later, because right now it's really not important. If you're starting out with, you really want to focus more on the foundation of your music making, and compression, EQ, all of that stuff can come later, as it is something that's obviously very important, but it's also something that I feel like a lot of people start going into too early without understanding the importance of it or why they even need to do it. And I'm basically just going to start off with talking about the mindset going into creating a song. I feel like I listen to a lot of people who talk about like, oh, I want to get into producing, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what genre I should delve into. And they say like, oh, I don't know if I should make dubstep, or I should make deep house, or I should make trap bangers, or I should do this, or should do that. If that's your mindset going into producing, then you're already basically setting yourself up for failure, because what you're doing is you're not creating something that is a method of self-expression. You're fitting yourself into a mindset that's already been done before, that's already been created by somebody else, and you're literally just following them as a means to basically get a very superficial level of satisfaction in your music, because it's like, oh yeah, I sell beats for this rapper, or I get to DJ at this cool club, or I'm just famous, or I get a lot of money. And if that's the main reason why you're going into music, you're probably not going to make it. And even if you do, the success rate that goes throughout your entire life will be very, very short-lived, because you aren't making your mark in a way that people remember you in a significant way. You're making music that's, first of all, it's disposable, and you're cheapening yourself by making you as an artist disposable, and people are going to fulfill that destiny that you're setting for yourself. So really, when you want to start making music, you don't really have to have any specific genre or sound that you have in mind. You should really just be doing it, starting off with, just for fun. If you're not having fun making music, and you're not enjoying it, and you're not experimenting even when right as you start, then you're basically wasting your time in the long term. I haven't been producing that long. I've been producing 4 years, and I already feel a sense of satisfaction every time I make something, and I know that it's truly something that comes from myself, and it comes from an inner part of me that is separate from my physical being, if you want to go into that level. So to begin with, really what you need to understand about music is the concept that you're putting yourself into this. And if you're not putting yourself into this music, then you're not making music that's you, and people aren't going to be thinking about you when they listen to this music. They're just going to be listening to it, and it'll pass by like noise. And no matter how good it is or how good you are at being that artist, people aren't going to recognize you in a significant way. And you can see people like this on SoundCloud who may have loads of followers, 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers, and they get all kinds of comments like fire track bro, whatever, like just all kinds of people saying this very superficial complimentary stuff. And all of that is fleeting. It's passive in the sense that these people don't really care about the music they're listening to. They're just impressed with it in this present moment of time, and then they're going to want something new later on. And the goal of being a musician is that you want to make something that people will always listen to, or people will always try to remember in some way, because ultimately, if you're doing it for your career, that's where, in a very physical, materialistic way, that's where the money comes in, right? If you have a song that people are constantly listening to for 5 years, 10 years, like 100 years at a time, people still remember the song. People still recognize melodies that Mozart and Beethoven made 300 years ago. And they made music that resonated with people in that way because it was something that was specifically a form of deep self-expression. And you have these other composers from those times that, first of all, no one really remembers anymore unless you're majoring in classical music, composition theory, whatever. And basically no one cares about them because they weren't making music for the right reasons. They were making music specifically because, it was their job, or they had the desire, they just wanted to make good music. See, that's the other thing I feel like that's important. You shouldn't really want to make good music just for the sake of making good music. It's a complicated thing to talk about when trying to make good music, but really it should just come flowingly and naturally. There's never been a moment of time where I've made good music, or music that I feel is a very deep method of self-expression, where I've tried really hard to make it. It just kind of came out of me. And I think that's a very good thing to keep in mind, is that you really want to go into music with broad strokes. If you do like just a simple exercise and you have 2 pieces of paper, on one of them you just draw a circle as fast as you can. Don't think about it, just do like a very quick broad stroke of a circle. And then on the next piece of paper, really focus all of your energy and try really hard to draw a perfect circle in every way possible. You will notice that the one that took you no time at all, the one that put the least amount of effort in, that's going to be the one that actually looks more perfect and feels better. And that's basically what you need to tap into, is the raw energy, where you aren't trying to make a good song. You're just kind of like, you're just pushing yourself into it. And you do that repeatedly, over and over again, until you get better at it and it just feels more natural to you. And all of a sudden that broad stroke becomes smoother and smoother, and you find absolutely no reason to try. And there might be a time in your music career where you really do try, and you try really hard to make a perfect song, and it's just not working, and you'll beat yourself up for days and days and days until you basically just throw out the project because it's just not working. And that's happened to me numerous times. And anytime I get into a creative headspace and I'm trying to work on a song and I find that I'm trying too hard to make something work, I just stop what I'm doing and do something else, because I know in the long term, even if I do manage to make something that's decent, it's not going to be nearly as good as something that I make in like 10-20 minutes, because that's what you really need to tap into, and you can't force that. It comes naturally. It comes in weird sporadic moments when you get that inner drive of creativity, and it just comes out of you. And the more you sort of, I wouldn't say chase after it, but the more you exercise that drive and the more you do it, the more frequent it will appear, and the better the music you will make will come out of it. So basically, what you need to do first of all is find a creative process that works for you. For this tutorial, I guess I'll just use my own creative process. But I have a very professional amount of VSTs and drum packs and effects and all this other shit. But reality is you really don't need all of this. This is something you should be building up with as you develop yourself as a musician. For the first 6 months, for the first year even, when I was making music, I was just using Audacity and GarageBand. Those were my two softwares that I would be using. GarageBand, I just, would make simple beats using the stock drum kit that came on there, put some stock effects on top of each other, use the basic synths, and I made some pretty good music out of it. And honestly, if you're just starting out, that's basically where you should be starting. You shouldn't invest $1,000 in VSTs or spend your entire day torrenting all kinds of shit, because really you're just gonna get too much stuff that's basically overpowering, in a sense, that you're not used to using the level of these machines, and they're not going to work with you, and you're just going to get lost my train of thought. You're going to just get confused, really. You're going to overstimulate yourself with all of this technology that you don't know how to use, and you're going to get you're just not going to find it fun, and you're not going to find a reason to make music anymore. So getting good software should be something that happens over time, and you should really just start off with the basics and just really focus on just making music that you enjoy making, and second of all, that you enjoy listening to. And that's an important thing I want to emphasize here, is that you really should be, the goal is to make music that you yourself actually enjoy listening to. If you're a chef and you're a cook, you should be able to make food that you actually enjoy eating. And I always do that whenever I make music. I always try to make music that I enjoy listening to. And I do. I listen to my own music and I enjoy it. And that's the point. That's why I made music to begin with in the first place, was so I can, I had trouble finding music that I enjoy listening to, or I wanted to get music that I could listen to on repeat. And then I just had the idea, it's like, why not I just make my own music that way? And that's what I did. And obviously I'm not successful all the time. In fact, probably only 5% of the songs that I've ever made I actually really enjoy listening to on a consecutive basis. So now that we've sort of covered the basics of getting into music making and understanding it, I'm going to do what I started off with, which was basic improvisation on the piano. The piano was the instrument that I learned when I was a kid, and that was what sort of channeled me into producing, because I had all this knowledge, not even a lot of knowledge. I had basic knowledge of playing the piano. I never really used it for anything other than playing random songs that my piano teacher taught me, but I never actually felt like I can use it for anything. And then once I found out about producing, I realized I can use this talent for something. And even if you don't have any musical experience whatsoever, it's good to find just one little thing that you're good at, and then just emphasize that in production and just work on that and master that, and then eventually that'll bleed into other areas of production that you'll get good at. And that, for me, for instance, was writing drums. I've never was a drummer before. I've never done anything with percussion ever in my life. And the knowledge of piano, it's a rhythmic instrument, obviously bled into understanding that part. But yeah, if you really want to start anywhere musically before getting into production, I would definitely recommend learning the piano. A lot of people try learning guitar, which is a fine instrument, but piano is really the foundation of where all Western music comes from. Okay, if you learn how to play the piano, you could basically learn how to play any other instrument out there, because it covers everything you need to know basically about music, and that's a very important thing. So I'm playing on a Code 49. It's a 49 key piano. Really, you don't need this if you're starting out with. It's something that I wanted because I wanted a full range piano to play with. Like I said, when I was playing on GarageBand, I was just using my keyboard, like the little built-in keyboard keys that you play in, that's basically like half an octave in range, which works at some level. It's not perfect, obviously, but you can still do some cool stuff with it. So what I would start off with, if you want to get into improvisational on piano, is you start off with the pentatonic scale. Right now I'm using a C minor pentatonic scale. That's the scale I'm most familiar with. Like I said, I started off on my keyboard, the computer keyboard, and that was the scale that had the most range that I could use. Was C minor. And that's another thing I'm going to bring up later. But yeah, so C minor, start off with pentatonic. Really just mess around with it. Come up with some melodies. You know, get something bluesy going on. I mean, that's what I started off with. I'll get like, let's say like a simple drum pack. Let's go hip hop. Doesn't really matter. You know. I'm not really good at doing live drums, but you get the idea. Basically, you know, just do a simple drum beat. And this is what you should start off with. I wouldn't recommend going right into programming drums. What you really want to do is, you know, just start off. Let's like even bring this down something slower so it's easier to get into the groove. And wait, hold on, I'm getting fucked up here. Bad with working with the click, as you can see. Anyway, fuck that. Let's bring it up here because I'm not used to that range here. Okay, not very good. This isn't gonna be professional. I'm just showing you my general creative process when I was younger. So basically what you want to do is you do that simple drum beat. You just look at it on the program here, and just like you just keep doing different beats, different drum patterns, and you just sort of see it the more you do it, and then you'll just get a clear understanding of how patterns work and how you can basically compose them without having to actually do them live like I just did now pretty mediocrely. So yeah, so whatever. This isn't supposed to be perfect. I don't have, you know, normally I could spend like at least like an hour working on the drums, making sure that it's something I enjoy. But this is where I start off with, is just making like a simple beat, and then afterwards just doing some basic improvisation on the piano. So if you're starting out with, just do like pentatonic scale, very basic stuff, and then as you progress more and more, just sort of start adding more notes, getting more familiar with the scales. Another thing that I want to emphasize with is, if you're writing melodies as you get more experienced, the thing I would recommend writing most of your melodies is in a minor key. A lot of people always focus on doing it in major key because that's like the basic scale everyone learns when they start off with music theory. But honestly, I would prefer to learn in a minor scale, because a minor scale is a lot more powerful. It's a lot more easier to evoke some sense of energy in your music. It's a very energetic scale that isn't necessarily sad, as a lot of people misinterpret it as being. There's a lot of happy, upbeat music that's played in a minor scale. In fact, if you look at the majority of the most popular songs throughout history, most of the time they are in a minor scale or a minor scale derivative form, but they basically have that that sort of style or sound that they have within it. So I would recommend, especially if you're starting out with, really try to improvise on a minor scale or write melodies in a minor scale, because that's when you're going to get an easier time finding evoking sounds and melodies. And then you can work your way up to a major scale, which I find is actually a lot more difficult to write impactful melodies. So let's just do a little lick here. Okay, so that's like a 16 bar little loop there. Basically, you know, you just kind of want to like feel it out. I've been doing this for a while, so improvising just sort of just comes naturally the more I do it. When I first started out with improvising, it took me a while to get like things, and I would just, you know, that's another thing you want to do is you just it's basically a system of repeat and repeat and repeat. And if, you know, you do a little loop, it doesn't work, just try again. You keep going, keep going, keep going until you find something that works. And you basically, I feel like that's the best way to sort of go at it. And yeah, it's going to take a lot of time if you're just doing things really randomly and sporadically, but that's really how you're going to learn, is by just repeatedly doing it by trial and error. So like, I mean, this is an okay melody. I probably wouldn't use it for anything, but it's just to give you an idea. Like, that's kind of off time. And then you can just add some hi-hats in there. Whatever. I mean, like I said, the whole point of this isn't to really make you see like, oh yeah, this is how to make a perfect track, perfect house banger, perfect hip hop beat. This is really just opening yourself up to the creative process, opening yourself up to trying new things, trying different sounds, trying different melodies. And I feel like that's more important than focusing on specific genre conventions, specific this, specific that. This to me is the most important aspect of learning how to make music, and I would have appreciated it if I was starting out with it. This is how I would learn, because I would watch all kinds of tutorials, and while they helped a little bit, helped me find like certain drum patterns, or, you know, how to make some sort of sound specifically for a synth, it didn't help me at all become a musician, in the sense that, oh, I'm opening myself up to a creative process. And you might go through you know, a long time of making music and realize that maybe making music isn't even really for you, and that's something that you really just have to face by yourself. So yeah, that's basically where I'm going to leave it off at. I'll probably make another video at some point going more in depth as to specific sounds and specific scales or whatnot, but this is really just an opener to someone who's just starting out with where to start, how to look at music, how to think about it, in the sense that you're really just looking at it from a foundational aspect, and you really want to master the basics when it comes to anything in life, especially music. And that's what listeners really look for, is they want something that feels raw, that has that raw energy that's in it, and then it sort of tapers off, and it makes sure there's like that extra added energy that makes sure everything is perfect, everything's smooth, but the core of it has that still raw, powerful energy, which is the most important part when it comes to making music or any art or just anything in general that you do. So that's it. Thank you for watching.